Alrighty, good morning, everybody. My name is Lisa Uematsu. I'm the treasurer for 33rd District PTA. And so welcome to our very first tax filing bootcamp. Yay! So we hope we can give you enough information so that you feel comfortable, to set your minds at ease as far as doing your PTA's tax filings. We will be focusing on PTAs making less than $50,000, but we will answer as many tax-related questions as we can. So please feel free to put any questions you have in the chat. And then if we need clarification about your question, then we can ask you to unmute yourself to make sure we have all the relevant information. Okay, one of our goals at 33rd District PTA is to increase the avenues of communication with our members. So the finance team's contact information is on slide 2 of that PowerPoint that we sent out to you today and yesterday. And also 33rd District PTA has a variety of social media accounts, including Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And so I've already introduced myself. I'm going to introduce our filings expert today is Flora Farzad, 33rd District 33rd District PTA at Tax and Government Filings Consultant. And like I said, here is our contact information and also the phone number for the office, the 33rd District office. And I'm going to turn it over to Flora.
Hi, everybody. This first slide that we have, these are the 3 options for the annual financial report. You only need to turn in one, but it needs to be one of these. This is an IRS required report, but we don't file it. We keep it in-house in case there's a future audit. And this is basic information that they want to see. The reason why we're showing you this is because the way that you fill it out, we want to make sure that you understand and you see the arrow that when you're preparing, and we'll see this later on, we're preparing your postcards or your 990 ins and 199 ins, that gross receipts does not include pass-through income. Oh, we need to go back. Pass-through income. So this is the membership dues that you get if you collect your memberships and you need to pass on to the council or the district. So that's not to be included in gross receipts. I also want to mention, if you look at the budget to actual report, and this may be an easy report, especially for financial software users that you just click and submit, but see that the pass-through income is equal to the pass-through expense. Those should equal. Whatever money coming in is money going out. So when you prepare your CTTR1 that we're going to look at later, you want to make sure that you deduct both the revenue and the expense in those. And so we call those pass-through incomes. That's not to say that we commingle funds. That's just for the PTA within the organization. It's not that we can collect money for the school and send it to them. We're not saying that at all, okay? If you use Totem, your problems are solved because you don't get that money anyway. So you don't have to record it or remit it, okay? The next slide, please.
Okay.
And then we're going to, this is the bylaws. And toward the end of your bylaws, there's a page that shows all of the identifying numbers that you need to file your taxes, your charitable trust, your incorporation. These are the different numbers that you will need. So make sure you have your bylaws when you're preparing these returns or reports, because these are the numbers that will be used. And the next page, these are the tax filing of federal. And I want to make sure that we understand, let's see where it says normally, less than, average of. This means that there's a 3-year average for submitting a 990 in. If your 3-year average is 150,000, you can file a 990 in. If it's over that, you'll have to do a 990 EC. So check with your tax preparer in case you have done 990 ECs, and don't assume that you can do a 990 in because last year revenues were so low. So you want to make sure you check that. Also, it's pretty scary there at the bottom saying the penalty is $20 per day for late or missing filings. Your tax preparer will do this, but if you have someone that's doing it for you for your 990 EZ, file an extension if you think that it's not going to be done in time. And that's a form 8868. So you want to make sure you do that. Most preparers will do that if it looks like for you, if it looks like they're not going to be done. Okay. To the next one, this date. Again, normally less than for the 50,000, it's the same rule. At the bottom of the 199N, though, they will say, if you're not allowed to file a 199N, we'll let you know, and there may be penalties. So you want to make sure you make that right decision. And that comes to the point, do not ignore any letters you get from any government agency, IRS, FTB, DOJ, anywhere, dog catcher, anywhere. Let us know if you get any letters, and you could go through your counsel, and if counsel has a question or can't figure it out, they will contact me at the district. And if it's really a problem, whatever, we have a person in Sacramento that will help straighten out any problem that you may have. So don't ignore any letters from any government agency. Okay. The CTTR1 or the RF1.
Which one?
This is, oh, no, look at you, so versatile. Okay,
RF1.
we could do the
Let's do that.
RF1 first. Yeah, we could do that first, sorry. This is the report that we have to submit to the Department of Justice every year. And everyone files that, no matter how much your gross revenues are. And they will keep track of this, and they will, and if you don't do it, they will put you as delinquent, and it becomes a situation. So you want to make sure that you file this, and there's a fee attached to this also. And we're going to go through this on how exactly to fill this one out. Okay, and if you file an extension with the IRS, this also applies to this form also. So no worries if you file an extension. And then we have a video that's going to explain exactly how to fill it out. And then the next one is the CTTR1. This is to be prepared for any unit that uses the postcard. The IRS, FTB, they don't care much about your details. There's no money to be made. They don't care. But the state of California Department of Justice wants to know or have an idea of how your money is received and how it is spent. And that's what this, it's like a little tax return that we have to prepare. It was starting in 2019, 2020. And so we want to make sure that we file that. So when you file your RF1, it either goes with a 990 EC or a postcard. It has to go with something. The RF1 never travels alone. Okay.
Okay, there's
That's
a
just a
question in the chat that we might want to get to before we do our
okay.
interactive.
If you're talking about filing electronically, which ones? The RF1, the Department of Justice, you cannot file electronically if you're behind. They want you to send any kind of returns that are behind if you're delinquent to the website or to mail it. And the email, not the website, but the email address, delinquency at, I think it's .ca.gov. But, and you can mail it, but you're not allowed to file electronically if you're delinquent. And also, I think if you owe a fee, I don't know if they've refined that yet.
There's a question that says, does that mean we need to report the $10 dues or just the $5 portion we keep, or list both, but the pass-through as an expense? So there's just some clarification on that.
Okay, so you receive $10 for the membership. So when you receive that $10, you're going to say $4.95 belongs to me. That's my unit membership. So you're going to post that to revenue, membership dues, and that's reportable because you're making that money. For the $5.05 that goes, you remit to the council, go, and they send it to the district, the state, whatnot. That goes into what do we call pass-through accounts, because it's not your money. It's just passing through. So you'll set up an income account for the $5.05, and then you should write a check or send, however way you send the money as an expense. So you can see that those two accounts, pass-through income and pass-through expense, you want to make sure they equal zero, because that's indicating that all the money you got in that wasn't yours has been passed on to the next level.
Alrighty, so we're going to launch a little poll so we can see how well you know your bylaws. There we go. Alrighty, so we'll give that. It's multiple choice and there are multiple correct answers, so go ahead and click all that you feel is correct. Okay, and in the interest of time, I'm going to cut this off right now and share results. Alrighty. Okay, Flora, you want to go over?
Okay, definitely the FTB number, 60% got that one. Raffle permit, no, because you don't need a raffle permit, and they issue the number to you once you apply. The California State PTA number, right? National PTA number, correct. There is no council PTA identification number, so that would not be in your bylaws.
Trick question.
I'm so sneaky. And and then Internal Revenue Service, EIN, yes, and the charitable trust number, yes.
Right. So does anyone have questions about that at all? Okay, now there's one more thing I wanted to share. And this is one I actually sent out yesterday and today. So this is a very helpful thing, and these videos here, we're actually going to be showing most of these, but they're available. These are actually clickable links on the file that I sent you, so that if you're not understanding, you can always just go and watch the video again. And then over here, there are links to get to where you need to file. So, and then we'll be, as of now, we had only shared it with those of you attending this session, but we're actually going to send it out probably to at least council officers, and we'll see if we can also forward that to unit officers too. Alrighty. Okay, let's see. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share the video for the federal, the 990N postcard.
Postcard. The first thing you need to do is gather all your materials. You should have the following items before you start: a copy of your annual financial report based on the final audit, a copy of your bylaws or the tax filing checklist from CAPTA, know your school's complete mailing address, and know your principal officer's complete mailing address. To get to the login page, there is a direct link on the capta.org Tax Filing Support Center page, or you can Google Form 990 Electronic Filing System and click on the link in the Ready to File section. If you don't have an account already, you'll need to create one on this page. If you already have one, you'll put in your username and then click Log In. Next, it will ask you to verify your credentials. It should show you your site image you picked when you made the account and your password. Then click Submit. It will then send you a security code to your phone. You need to input the 6-digit security code that it sends you and click Continue. If for some reason you can't get a text message, there is an option to get a security code via phone call. Next, it will show you your login history, all the times recently that you have logged in to file a 990 form. Click Continue. Next, you're going to go to the Managing Filing section. If this is the first time you have filed for this particular school, you're going to go to the first column, Manage e-postcard profile. If you've already filed before, you can go straight to the second column to manage the Form 990 and submissions. If you're adding a new EIN because you've never filed for this school before, in the first box you are going to put in the first 2 digits of the EIN and then fill in the rest of the numbers in the second box. From there, you can go down and create a new filing. If you've filed before for a lot of other units, you can delete them by clicking on the Delete box and then clicking Delete EIN. Once you're on there, you select the EIN from the drop-down menu and click Continue. On this page, you're going to do your organization's details. You can only file for the current year. If you need to backfile for a previous year, contact CAPTA's Tax Filing Support Center for sites you can do that at. Did you disband or go out of business? From the drop-down, you'll say yes or no. Are your gross receipts normally $50,000 or less? Gross receipts are total receipts before expenses are deducted. You must have a 3-year average of less than $50,000 to file a postcard. Don't forget, you can deduct your membership that does not belong to you that you send up through channels at this point. All PTAs in California have the same legal name. Don't change this line. Verify that the EIN is correct and click Continue. Next, they ask for the contact info. Here is where you should be including the name of your individual PTA in the DBA section. You're going to add the mailing address of your unit, not your personal address, and if your unit has a website, you can include it in this section. Next, they ask for principal officer information. In the first box, you should specify that the name is a person, not a business's name. Your principal officer is your president or your treasurer, not the principal of your school. Fill in their home address, not the school's address, and then click Submit Filing. You will get a pop-up confirmation warning. This is just to make sure that you are 100% satisfied with what you've already input. If you are, click OK. If you need to go back and check, click Cancel. On the final page, you need to click where it says Note, print a copy of this filing for your records. You can't go back later and print the official submission copy. The best you can do later is to print the IRS page that shows information from all of your postcard filings by date.
All righty. I personally am really grateful to California State PTA for doing this step-by-step video. So I'm hoping that it helps you guys. And then feel free to go ahead and share that with other units that may need it. So are there any questions? I didn't see any in the chat. Okay, Flora, was there anything else you wanted to add to what was in the video?
No, I mean, it was really good and precise. I wanted to say though that if you don't do it in time by November 15th, don't give up. Don't go into witness protection or anything like that. You just need to do it as soon as possible. So November 15th is the deadline, but please do it. because sooner is better than later. And so I want to make sure that you know that to file it as soon as you can.
And there's a question in the chat. Is the officer the current officer or the previous year officer? I mean, I'm assuming the principal officer
Yeah.
that you're mentioning in the filing? Yeah.
Or is it the PTA officer? I think we put the PTA officer, and it would be the president at the time of the filing. I think that's what Donna gives that information. So whoever was the president of the unit during that filing period, if you have it.
Okay. Well, if there are.
I'm sorry. And there, yes, the audit should be done first, because we don't want to take the chance that you file your taxes and the audit may find an error that would change that return in any way. So you want to make sure that your audit is done for June before you file your taxes. You don't necessarily need the association approval, because I know sometimes units, they don't have association meetings that often, and we don't want to miss the tax deadline because of board association approvals. So as soon as the audit is completed, and at least has a board approval, then you can go ahead and do your taxes. It's done. That is already done. I do not have to do this year yet, right? Just to be, if you filed for 2021, yeah, that is this year, this last year, that you should file by November 15th, 2021, which ends in June 2021. The taxes are due 4.5 months after your fiscal year ends, and that would be the November 15th. Filing for a different unit would not be accepted. The DBA name, is that a problem? I don't know what you mean by filing for a different unit. With the IRS, and I guess they didn't make that very clear. With the IRS, we're all under the PTA, California Congress of Parents and Teachers. That's the name that you will see when you pull up your EIN. And so you're doing business as, and then you would put your school name. And usually it's your PTA, not your school name, your PTA name as it appears on the DOJ or your bylaws, as whatever name is your unit in your bylaws. You would put that as doing business as.
I'm going to go ahead and just to make sure we cover all the material, I'm going to start the next video, but we can still try and answer any of the questions that are in the chat while the video is going on. Here. Okay.
Mailing address. You will be going to the Franchise Tax Board website to file this postcard. There is a direct link on the CAPTA.org Tax Filing Support Center page, or you can Google File California 199N Postcard. Once you're there and you have all your materials, you're going to click Start Postcard. On the login page, you're going to enter your 7-digit entity number that is in your bylaws or is on the tax filing worksheet available from your district PTA. It is the same as your franchise tax board number. It is not your EIN, but you will need that too. Type in the characters you see to verify you're not a robot, and then click Login. On the first page, you're going to verify your school name and entity number. Once you've clicked Continue, it'll take you to a page about your accounting period. Make sure you're using the correct fiscal year information for your school. Most schools in California are July 1st through June 30th. If you have old 199s to file, you can do it through this same website. You just need to adjust the fiscal year. Be aware the IRS does not allow you to backfile through their site. At the bottom of the page, it's going to ask you some questions. Are you a new unit? Have you disbanded? Did you change your fiscal year? From your annual report, round up your total gross receipts, not net, to the nearest dollar. Gross is your receipts before you've deducted expenses. Don't forget, though, you can deduct the membership not belonging to the unit that you pass up through channels. Are you refiling your taxes because something was incorrect? Then this is an amended return. No California PTA should have a 1023 or a 1024 form pending. This is for nonprofits that have not already received their 501c3 status. You already have one. You're going to click Continue at the bottom to go to the next page. The next page asks for your federal entity information. This is where you're going to be filling in that EIN number from earlier. You're going to say what your business is doing business as. For our EIN number, that is the PTA, California Congress of Parents and Teachers. It will not allow you to fill in the complete name, but you can fill in as much as possible. If you have a website, you should fill it in right now. Next, they're going to ask for your mailing address. The first part is the entity's mailing address. Give the address of your school, not your personal address. If you need to specify a department or person, you can fill it in the attention box. After you've filled in the entity's address, it asks for the principal officer's address. You have the option here of saying it's the same as the school's address, or you can fill in their home address. Either way, you're going to click Continue when you're done. The contact info refers to the person who is preparing this tax filing. Fill in the name and the phone number and click Continue. It gives you an opportunity now to review before you submit. Double check to make sure that all the information that you have put in is correct. At the bottom of the page, there is the scary thing that says perjury warning. All this is verifying that to the best of your knowledge, you are using the correct numbers for this entity and that you are telling the truth about how much money this entity made. Once you have checked the box, click Submit. Once you have submitted, you're going to get a confirmation page. Make sure you go down to the bottom and click Print. You need to have a copy of your filing because there is no searchable database of 199 forms. So if you forget to make a copy, there's no way to go back and get it later.
Any questions regarding the 199 filing, 199N filing? None? Okay, all righty, let's see. Then, okay, this one that we're sharing now is going to be for the CTTR1.
A copy of what the CTTR1 form looks like. There is an online renewal system for the RRF1 and the CTTR1 form together, available at the website below. You must be current with the Attorney General's office to use the online system. Do not attempt to file any old forms that are missing through their system. The online system asks for the same information as the paper form does. On the California State PTA's website, under our Tax Filing Support Center, you will be able to download a file called the Annotated CTTR1 form. This will help you to fill out your unit's CTTR1 form. We will go through this step by step for this video. First, you're going to fill in the name of your PTA as it is shown on the front cover of your bylaws. Then you're going to fill in your PTA's physical address, including your city and your state of California and your zip code. Then we are going to fill in our state charity registration number. Most PTAs in California start with CT and a string of numbers. If you have an older charity registration number, the CT may be missing. However, most of us do start with CT and some numbers. Then you're going to fill in your corporation or organization number. That is your franchise tax board number or your state tax ID number, as some people call it. Finally, your federal employer ID number or your EIN. All of these numbers are available in your bylaws near the back on the numbers page. Then you're going to fill in your annual accounting period. Most PTAs go from July 1st through June 30th. If your PTA has a different fiscal year, you need to verify it with your bylaws or your tax filing worksheet mentioned on the second slide. Double check to make sure you have the correct year included when you file the form. For the next sections, you're going to need your annual financial report. I'm going to start off in the assets section. Cash is your cash on hand that you use to pay your bills. It's your checking accounts, basically. If you have more than one checking account, you add them together to get the total. If you have a savings account, it would go in this section. Most PTAs do not have investments or own land or buildings, so we will skip that for today. Your other assets can be things like your value of your spiritware inventory, or if you own popcorn machines or other kinds of equipment, you put down the estimated value of them, and it will automatically total for you your total assets. On the next column in the liabilities section, the majority of PTAs run on a cash basis, not an accrual basis. So you don't usually have liabilities such as accounts payable, salary payable, or other liabilities. So most people, this entire section will be a 0. If you do have an accrual basis, so you have accounts payable, accounts receivable, you pay salaries, consult your tax professional for help on filling out this section. However, most units that have that situation make too much money to use the CTTR1 form anyways, because this is for postcard filers only, which means you make less than $50,000 a year. It will also auto-total your total liabilities and then present a fund balance, which is the total assets less your total liabilities. Your total assets will be taken from this worksheet and put onto your RRF1 form, which we discuss in a separate video, and we will touch on briefly at the end of this one. For the revenue statement section, you still need your annual financial report. We're going to start with your revenue, which is cash contributions. That is your membership dues, excluding the portions of the dues that you sent up through channels. Only the part of the membership that stays at your unit, council, or district is included in cash contributions. If you got cash donations, that is included. If you got gift cards donated to you, the value of the gift cards is included in the cash contributions. Non-cash contributions are things like water for a jogathon, items for a gift basket for an auction or a raffle. Program revenue, that's things that generate income that you consider a program. If you consider spiritware sales a program rather than a fundraiser, it would be included in here. If you sell yearbooks, if you have a family fun night that's not a fundraiser but more like a movie night and it generates incidental income, that is included in program revenue. As we said earlier, most PTAs do not have investments, so we will skip that one and go to special events. For the Attorney General's office, special events are your fundraisers. So if you have a fundraiser, if you have a raffle, if you have an auction, anything that's generating money that's not program related or cash contribution related, it's probably a fundraiser. And then they have other revenue. If you generate other revenue, that is something that does not fall into any of the other categories, you will be attaching an itemized list, which we will discuss on another slide. It will automatically total up your revenue for you. And then we switch over to expenses. PTAs do not compensate officers and directors. This is not a spot to put in things where you have reimbursed somebody on your board for expenses they incurred. This isn't for if you had officers that were paid for something as a salary. We also generally don't compensate staff. If you do, you should consult your tax professional about what to fill in there. Fundraising expenses, however, are any expenses related to what they call special events over on the revenue side. So if you have costs involved in your fundraising, you had to purchase items for a carnival, you had to put out mailers, you had to pay portion of a book fair if you don't consider the book fair a program. Those kind of things go in fundraising expenses. Generally, PTAs do not pay rent or utilities, so we are skipping that and going to supplies and postage. That is stuff from your administrative section of your budget, generally fall under supplies and postage, such as buying a case of paper for the PTA to use. Stamps for general PTA use, not that are specific to an event. That kind of thing is probably under supplies and postage. Anything you use for your PTA operations. Next, we go to insurance. The insurance for most people will just be that one rate that everybody pays. If you have additional costs, like you had an event that required additional insurance to be purchased, or if you're one of the units, councils, or districts that hires an independent contractor who does not carry their own workers' comp insurance, that might be included. You lump it all together for your insurance. And then finally, there's other expenses. That's basically everything else that you spend money on. Usually program, that's 99% of it, but it will need to be listed, itemized on another sheet of paper, which we will discuss in a moment. The form auto totals your expenses, and then it will tell you what your net revenue at the end is, which is your total revenue less your total expenses. The total revenue line will be used on the RRF1 form, and we will discuss that at the end of this presentation. Next, you go to supplemental information. If you answered yes to any of the questions on the RRF1, you'll need to explain them. You also need to explain other revenue from the CTTR1 form and other expenses from the CTTR1 form. You need to provide an itemized list for each of these scenarios. There is no exact format for the information. It is easiest to just do it on a Word or Google document. An example of what it might look like is on this slide. You entitle it Supplemental Information. You put your PTA's name on it. Put what the fiscal year end is. Include your government numbers. That way, if this form somehow gets separated from the other parts of the form, they will be able to track it down and put it back for you. In this sample, they did not have any other revenue, but they did have other expenses, and you'll see they listed the amount of the expense and the budget line item. You're going to transfer these items from the CTTR1 form to the RRF1. On both forms, you're going to make sure that you have the correct accounting period. The two forms must match. As we said earlier, most of you will be July 1st and then the year, and then ending June 30th of the following year. From the CTTR1 form, you're going to put the gross annual revenue. That was the total revenue from the revenue section. In our sample, it was $26,405. In our sample, we did not have any cash contributions, so we have put that as a 0. And then we go back to the asset section to come up with the total assets. So in this case, it was $88,452. On the form, We do not fill in, if you are filling out a CTTR1 form, you do not fill in the program expenses. That's what the CTTR1 form is for. It shows the program expenses. And then you just take the total expenses from the revenue section of the CTTR1 form and put it on the total expenses line.
Alrighty. I just thought I should clarify that I am actually kind of chopping off the beginnings and the ends of the videos just because there's some stuff that's pretty much the same in the beginning and the end. And for the CTTR1 and the RRF1, they're just talking about, oh, and here's where you sign, which I know you guys can all figure that out. So, Flora, there was the question about the
Yeah.
1099. You want to
1099s. Yeah, there was a question about paying a mom to water the lawn or something like that, if they should issue a 1099. And 1099 should be issued, it's in a calendar year, not a fiscal year, and it should be if the person earns $600 or more in that calendar year. And they should be included also as performing a service on your workers' comp report. That is what I know. Also, I want to make clear on this CTTR1 that some units have CDs, and CDs are considered savings, not investments, because they're very liquid. They can be turned into cash very easily, and so any CDs that you may have separate from your checking account or your savings account is considered savings also. With regard to spiritware, I did look that up on the IRS, tons of stuff, and it's considered a program if you keep an inventory. So if you're selling spiritware all year, it's your business, so to speak, and you're keeping an inventory, it's not a special event. So it's not a fundraiser, it would be a program. If you're selling t-shirts at a carnival, those t-shirts would be a fundraiser because you're only selling them once a year at a special event. So that's what I was able to see as far as spiritware. What is the difference between a fundraiser and a program? And it's because you keep inventory and sell it all year. It's not a special event. That's my interpretation.
Okay, so here's the new thing I learned today. Thanks, Flora.
You bet.
So even if you do have the spiritware and you're intending to make a profit from it, if you're doing it year round, then
well, on your 990 EZ, if you complete that one, it's not listed as program or fundraiser. It's listed under sales and cost of goods sold. So as far as the IRS is concerned, it's not a fundraiser or a program. It's a sales and cost of goods sold.
okay.
So.
All right. Okay. Was there any other things you wanted to address regarding the CTTR1 since it is a relatively new form?
Oh, yeah, and I want to make sure there was a lot of questions before and some submissions that were incorrect. And they were concerned, where is your prior year cash balance? Like your balance in the bank as of the end of the previous year, that is already in your cash balance that you report. So that amount, let's say you had $1,000 at June 30, 2020, and you have $3,000 now. You made $2,000 in that current year. So your $1,000 became $3,000, and that's what you're providing on that cash line. Some people were concerned about reporting a negative in the revenue less expense, that you're spending more money that you have, and that's not true. I mean, that's what happened during that year only. But you have your cash balance that you've brought forward from previous years that you're able to pay your expenses and stuff. And so they were reporting like the prior year cash is other income. No, your prior year cash is already in your cash balance. So that came up as a question quite a bit.
Okay, and then someone had her hand up, Malaya. Do you still have a question?
My question, it's not a question. I just want to clarify. I summarized what Flora was saying, that if it's a one-time, if a one-time event, it will go in different category. If it's a yearly sale, for example, for the spirit wear, then it goes to a different category. Is that what you're saying, Flora?
Yes, if it's a one special event, then it's considered a fundraiser, and you would put it on that separate line item for fundraising. If it's like spiritware that you sell all year, you keep an inventory all year, that's a program. And then and that would be under program revenue. And then the money that you pay for the spiritware would go under other expenses, because it's kind of weird. Program revenue has a separate line item under revenue, but program expense does not. And so it would go under other expense. And so that's why you don't fill in that program expense on the RF1. And so you want to make sure too that you do your supporting schedule, you prepare that supporting schedule for other revenue and other expense, so that under other expense, you would put spiritware expense, $10,000, something like that.
Thank you.
You bet.
All righty. Well, we're going to hop to a poll. If you think of any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Okay, we'll give it about 5 more seconds. All right, here we go. Share the results. And okay. Good. Time for
Okay.
Flora to clarify everything.
Yeah, I'm so sneaky. All PTA units must submit a CTTR1 to the Department of Justice. That is false, because only those units averaging or normally gross revenues are 50,000 or less do a CTTR1. If you're over 50,000, you have to do a tax return called a 990 EZ, or 990 if you're over 200,000, and that would be sent with your RF1, not a CTTR1, just for 50,000 or less. The prior year cash balance 2019-2020 is included in the cash balance figure on the current year CTTR1, and that's true. Your prior year cash balance, and it's really your bank account. Your bank account doesn't close at the end of the year like your revenue and expenses. It keeps moving forward. So your cash balance that's in your bank account is always moving forward. You know, it's always carried forward. And so your prior year cash balance will be in your cash balance. So even though your expenses may be more, and I know this happened, you know, last year because of COVID, maybe we didn't get as much money as you would like, you might have spent more. It's okay, as long as your negative net operations does not exceed your cash balance, otherwise you can't pay your bills. So, okay.
All righty. And I believe Denise would like to ask a question. Go ahead, Denise.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I wanted to ask a question on a CTTR. It's the video was self-explanatory to me, but sometimes when you talk to your units, they need more examples of what to put in things. So is it possible to do like lists for special events, you know, naming fundraisers and, you know, different things like that, or other revenue, or the supplies, like you have papers and stamps, but you know, you might need ink, or you might need something else, other supplies. Is it possible to do like sample lists so that people can get a better understanding on what they could put in those spots?
Yeah, you know, what makes it easier too is when you set up your budget. and you would put like the tax categories, for example, and you would put in your budget, use your budget. So, and that's why the budget into actual for the annual report is so nice, because you can put, and if you look at the example, there is programs, and then it lists all the programs. So how you do your budget, and you say, okay, these are the programs, and then fundraisers, these are the fundraisers and the expenses. So if you set up your budget, you can use those line items for the CTTR1 in those
Okay.
categories.
I'll just make sure that they do that then.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And Nancy, go ahead.
I just got a little confused with the poll question. So let's say, Flora, the tax year that we'd be working on currently is 2020 and 2021, correct?
Yes.
So for putting that cash balance down, is it the beginning balance of the fiscal year or the ending balance of this fiscal year?
It's your ending balance. It's your ending cash balance. So you could look on your audit and see for the bank account, they have the beginning bank account statement, and then you reconcile it to your thing. So you just want to make sure that it's your bank statement ending balance on June 30, 2021.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Teresita.
The form that I've been using is not, it doesn't write down the total. So I've been writing them, handwriting the totals.
Yeah.
So is there another form that does it for you, or or is that the form?
Yeah, the one that's on the CAPTA toolkit, it doesn't, or even I think the DOJ website, it doesn't have the fillable in some of the squares. I just use it. I'm a humble person. I'm not techie. I'm not proud. I just, but if someone knows where there is a fillable one, I wouldn't mind knowing where that is.
Yeah. Okay, so keep on adding.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's a question in the chat about, will these meetings be recorded and available for everyone to access afterward? We're going to try and do our best to make the recording of this session available, but that involves making sure that I get it to communications and all that stuff. But since this one is a time-sensitive one, this will go to the top of the list to do. And also those CAPTA recordings that we're sharing during this presentation are available right now if you want to go check it out after this. Okay. Malaya.
Thank you very much for the information. Flora, thank you.
Oh,
I salute you for your knowledge.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks so much.
My question is there like a sample for us to follow exactly when it comes to, like, especially in certain schools, they really do not understand when it comes to budgeting. So if you have a sample when they said, okay, like you're saying, when you set your budget, that's exactly how you follow. So how do you set a budget when you have no idea from the beginning? I'm just talking about like you have no knowledge of what to do and how to do it. When you're spending money, where it's supposed to go. But if you had just a nice sample and then we add whatever we need to do to add into it. Maybe
Okay.
that's just a silly question.
Oh, no, not at all. There's no silly questions. It depends on what your school wants to do. And there's a sample budget in the CAPTA toolkit. It's a financial report. If you want to look at how that, back on page 3 of your handout, if you look at your annual financial report sample from the toolkit, that's the first one, the one on the left, it does give you examples of what goes into each category. So you may want to look at that. I can't see it that well because it's so small, but you see how it has operating expenses, program services, fundraising. So it's kind of split up like that. So you can kind of follow that example in the CAPTA toolkit. But if you have any other questions, we're here to help you with whatever you need.
Thank you. You're right. It's very tiny. So
Yeah, it's so tiny. Yeah.
thank you.
All right.
Okay, and there's a question that was direct message to me. Is it possible to have another person do the tax filings instead of her? I'm assuming she's a treasurer, because there's concern, her family's concerned about, if you mess up, will the IRS come after you?
Oh, well, um, I know I mean, there's that statement, that's the best of your abilities. So I don't know how you would mess up a postcard, especially the IRS, as long as you know that your gross revenue is not over 50,000. That's pretty easy. And if it's over 50,000, get a tax preparer. Let them go after them. You know, you're paying 450, 500 bucks for them to do it. If there's an error, they have to take care of that. So if you're filing a 990Z, that's not to say that if you're making less than 50,000 that you can't file a 990Z. If you don't want that responsibility of filing a postcard, even though it's 26, 27, 30,000, you may engage the services of a tax preparer and prepare a 990Z. There's no law saying you have to do a postcard if you want to give that responsibility to a tax preparer, but be sure that you get approval for that expense from your association. Teresita.
Okay, I know I asked you this before, but I want a clarification on this one. Who does the taxes? Who is the person that to do the taxes? Is it
It's normally the treasurer because they're more intimate with the financial data.
which treasurer? The one that just,
The
one that finished at 6:30 and we're doing the taxes in November?
No, it's the outgoing treasurer because they're responsible for that year. So
Okay.
it would be the treasurer at 6/30/2021, not the incoming at July 1st, 2021. So it'd be the outgoing treasurer is responsible, just as the auditor is. The auditor is responsible for the prior year audit. So, and if they're gone, disappeared or whatever, then the new year people may do it as long as the auditor for the new year is not the treasurer for the prior year, because they would be auditing their own books. But no, normally it's the outgoing.
Okay, and I have another question. If we have one of our units that they said that they paid a tax preparer, but they didn't file anything, and then the school filed. We think it's the school that filed at the end of the year, but they only file their income. They only filed that they had made money, and then at the end of the paper, they said that they crossed the number 9 on the RRF, where it says that at the end of the reporting period, the organization hold restricted not assets while reporting negative unrestricted not assets.
Okay, I think that's something that can be discussed outside.
Perfect.
It's kind of a unique question.
Okay.
And we may have to look at that further.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then the other question, you know that some of our schools are filing more than one RRF forms. So do they have to file, like I have a school that has like 5, let's say. So
you're talking about prior years.
Yeah, prior years.
Yes.
For this year, they send it all in one with the CTTR. But the prior years, do we send each one in an envelope, or does it, or can they send all of them together?
Well, I would do, since they're obviously delinquent, if they're missing prior years,
Right.
that they should do a separate RF1 for each year, as you said. The
Yes.
CTTR one is only starting 2019, 2020. So
Yes.
don't worry about a CTTR one prior to that time. And
Yes.
I would email them all to delinquency at, help me, Lisa.
I think it's delinquency at doj.ca.gov. But
Yeah.
if you want to double check with me afterwards, you can send me an email.
Yeah. So they
Okay.
So The Department of Justice wants those units off the delinquency list as much as we do, believe me. And so they respond quickly. So if they send all of those RF1s and any CTTR1 that's available to that delinquency email address, they will take care of it, I would say, within a week.
Okay, so they don't need to mail them.
No,
Okay.
no, it's best if you're delinquent like that, because the next step, and this is what's going to happen, I think in December, they will be suspended. And that's a lot harder to get back into the good graces of the Department of Justice once you're suspended. So email those to the delinquency website and they will
Perfect.
help you.
Perfect.
Okay.
Not
All
website,
right.
email address.
Email.
Okay.
Yes. All right. We're going to go ahead to the last video. Hold on here. Let's see. This is regarding the RRF1 form.
Filing address, and information about any raffles you had during the tax filing year. This is an example of what the RRF1 form looks like. There is an online renewal system available at the website below. You must be current with the Attorney General's office to use their online system. Do not attempt to file old forms through their online system. It will be rejected. The online system asks for the same information as the paper form, which we will be going over in this presentation. On the California State PTA website, we have a tax filing support center. On this page, you can find a copy of the annotated version of the RRF1 form that will enable you to fill out the one for your unit correctly. The first thing you're going to need to do is fill in the name of your PTA as it says on the front of your bylaws. If at some point in the past you have used a different name for your PTA under the same EIN number, you would fill it in here. You will put in the street address, your city, California, and your zip code, the school's phone number or your personal phone number, and an email address that you can be reached at should they have any problems with the form. If this is a change of address for this PTA, or you are filling out an amended report, you would check off the boxes here. Then you're going to fill in your identification numbers. Your state charity registration number is the CT number. It starts, for most of us, with the letter CT, although some of our older units may just have a single number. Then you're going to do your corporation or organization number. That is your franchise tax board number or your California tax ID number, as some people say it. And finally, you're going to fill in your EIN number, which is your IRS number. Then you're going to look at the table and see if you're going to have any renewal fees. That will come into play at the very end. In the second part of the form, you're going to be filling in the following information. You're going to be putting in what the accounting period was. For most of us in California, that starts on July 1st and ends on June 30th. Make sure you have the correct years filled in as well. Then you're going to be filling in your gross annual revenue. If you are filing a 990N, which is the postcard, you're going to be getting that from a different form called the CTTR1 form. If you file a 990, it's the line 12, or if you file a 990EZ, it is line 9. On this line, we fill in non-cash contributions. That's things that you have gotten donated for you for like an auction or for a jogathon, such as water or items for gift baskets. This is just an estimate of the retail value of those items. It's not included in your annual revenue. Then you're going to list your total assets. Your total assets generally are the total of all of your bank balances at the end of the fiscal year, which for this form would be June 30th. If you have other assets, they may be included in here. If you fill out the 990N postcard, you will be leaving the program expenses line blank. If you fill out the 990 or the 990EZ, you will look through the instructions that are provided and add your program expenses on this line. And finally, your total expenses. If you filed the 990N postcard, your total expenses will be on that form CT-TR1. Otherwise, you'll be looking at your instructions for your 990 or your 990EZ. On this section of the form, there are 9 questions that require a yes or no answer. If you answer yes to some of them, you may need to provide additional information. Number 1 is asking, during this reporting period, were there any contracts, loans, leases, or financial transactions between the organization and any officer, director, or trustee thereof, either directly or with an entity in which an officer or director or trustee had a financial interest? This is almost always a no answer and should be answered by looking at your conflict whistleblower forms, which are also a requirement under IRS regulations. During this reporting period, was there any theft, embezzlement, diversion, or misuse of the organization's charitable property or funds? This is usually a no, unless you had to file a police report for one of those incidences. During this reporting period, were any organization funds used to pay any penalties, fines, or judgments? That would be if you got a fine from the IRS or the AG or the Franchise Tax Board, or you were being sued for some reason. This is very rarely a yes answer. During this reporting period, were the services of a commercial fundraiser, fundraising council for charitable purposes, or a commercial co-venturer used? Occasionally, PTAs enter into agreements with commercial fundraising companies. These are not things like your wrapping paper fundraiser or a cookie dough fundraiser. These are specifically fundraisers that have a person going out and raising funds on your behalf, and then they may take a flat fee or a percentage of the donations. During this reporting period, did the organization receive any governmental funding? Most PTAs, that is always a no. During this reporting period, did the organization hold a raffle for charitable purposes? If you held a raffle, you need to make sure you have a raffle registration and have sent in your raffle report, and you may in addition be asked for the dates of the raffle and what the proceeds were. Does the organization conduct a vehicle donation program? That is generally speaking a no for PTAs. Did the organization conduct an independent audit and prepare audited financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles for this reporting period? For most PTAs, that is a no. Our audit is actually a financial review and is not done under what is called GAAP procedures or principles. Unless you paid somebody, and it's generally a large amount of money to pay one, to have an audit done for some reason, the answer should be no. At the end of this reporting period, did the organization hold restricted net assets while reporting negative unrestricted net assets? That should be a no from most PTAs. We generally don't hold restricted net assets because we are on a cash basis and we do not have an accounting system that would allow for that.
Let's see. Flora, you want to go over that question about the signers and being teachers? And
Yeah, the question was, check signers, can they be like employees of the school, like teachers and stuff too? And it is not recommended that employees of the school be check signers, like president and treasurer of PTA. They can volunteer maybe for some other positions. There's a question of conflict of interest, and and also some school districts have rules stated, and I've seen that where they do not allow school employees to be on or affiliated organizations like the PTA in any kind of financial position or being check signers. They don't want that. So no, I wouldn't recommend a teacher being president or treasurer.
We're going to finish up
Okay,
these
Uh,
slides.
that me?
That's
Okay.
you.
That's me. Okay, so the SI 100 for incorporated PTAs, that's to be filed every 2 years, and that's if you're incorporated. And you can tell that if you take a peek on your bylaws on that page where it has your California FTB number. If it begins with an 8 or a 9, you're probably not, no, not probably, you're not incorporated. So if your franchise tax board number begins with an 8 or 9, you don't have to worry about this. If it begins with a 0, you are incorporated and you are required to file the SI 100. And that can be done online, very easily, but it's every other year. And I know when we went in for our bank account, things this year, when I was a check signer for certain organizations, they do check on that. If you're incorporated, they have access to that information. So the letter of determination, the next slide. This is saying that you're in good standing with the Attorney General, and this is kind of a founding document. And it's proving that we are a tax-exempt organization. Sometimes you need these for your bank account. Banks are getting really picky these days, but you also may need it for a fundraiser. They want to make sure that you're in good standing and you're tax-exempt. The president requests this from LOD@CAPA.org. They will check all that and then send you these letters dated in 1943. And so I would recommend that you do this once a year and that you attach this letter of determination to your bylaws. It's always nice to have, showing that you're tax exempt and the just the information that you may need at certain points in time. You don't want a fundraiser person that you want to do to ask for it, and then you don't have it, then you have to request it, and you don't want to miss those opportunities. So I would say keep that on hand. Okay. Raffles, and they were mentioning raffles also. It's the permit that you ask for is a multi-event permit, so you may have multiple raffles within the registration period, September 1st through August 31st, so that's great. They do not allow online raffles. That's not allowed. There's a $20 fee, and you have to file a report by October 1st. And even if you didn't have a raffle, you have to file that report and show 0, because they don't want to think like you forgot to file it. So even if you didn't have a raffle and you have a raffle permit, you're not current with the DOJ unless you file a report whether you had a raffle or not. I think it's important here to talk about, just for a moment, the 90-10 rule as far as raffles are concerned. So if you get $100 off your raffle, at least $90 has to be profit. You can only spend 10% of the money you earn on the administrative cost of the raffle, getting the item that you raffled. They're very serious about that, and that is a question on your report, the 90-10 rule. I did see a letter one time where a unit reported more expense than 10%, and there was a letter coming back. And I remember I said, don't ignore those letters. And it was very scary. And they said, we're going to assume you didn't know the 90-10 rule, and next time we are referring you to the Attorney General. It was a very scary letter. So you want to make sure you adhere to that 90-10 rule, because you not only report your income from these raffles, but you have to report your expense so that they can see you didn't spend more than 10% administrative costs. Okay, it looks like the last one here is help from the California State PTA. And this is where you would go, and this is the website, and they have everything that you need, and they will lead you in the right direction to get the forms that you need, the instructions, and it's very well done. Any questions?
Question in the chat. Just to clarify, if taxes are done electronically, we do not have to mail in anything?
No, that's it. But be sure to keep a copy for your records and send a copy forward to your counsel, who will forward it to district, because we do keep track of that. And PTA being very paper oriented, we do need hard copies, even though you have filed them electronically.
Alrighty.
Phone number.
Your pardon?
Give our phone number. Sure.
So the office phone number is actually in the handout, along with all of our email addresses.
Yeah, and they're more than happy to pass along any questions.
Lisa,
Yes.
my request, the treasurer's annual financial report that you sent, I really cannot see.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, can you send individual,
Sure.
like, please?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I can do that.
Oh, there's a question. I had about the 90-10 rule for raffles. If we held a raffle, bought a prize, and no one bought raffle tickets, would we be in trouble with the IRS? You'd be in trouble with the DOJ, not necessarily the IRS. But you shouldn't be buying prizes. Prizes should be donated. So if you're making a major investment in prizes, I would not recommend that. I would raffle items, because seriously, how can you adhere to the 90-10 rule if you're buying prizes? It's probably kind of hard to do. So I would suggest, your fundraiser people get out there and solicit donations for your raffle, as opposed to buying big ticket items.
Okay, I'm going to toss up a poll, but if anyone has any questions, you can still keep throwing them in the chat. And Flora, there's another question in the chat while we're waiting
Oh,
for people to do the poll.
okay. So it says, if you hold a raffle that is part of a larger fundraiser event, how do you calculate the 90-10 rule? The raffle should be a separate accounting within that fundraiser event. So you need a separate accounting for that. And so the fundraising event proceeds cannot supplement the raffle proceeds. So they're asking specifically for the raffle income and raffle expense. So you should keep that accounting separate.
All righty, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results.
Okay. PTA treasurer may request a letter of determination.
You and your trick questions,
CAPTA.
Flora.
I know. I must have been extra fussy that night or something. But so no, that is false, actually. The PTA treasurer doesn't, the PTA president does. So they're looking for the president to request that letter. A raffle permit allows the unit to have online raffle programs. False. Yes, no online raffle programs, whether you have a permit or not, they're not allowed. So Okay.
Okay, all righty. So that's it for our material. Are there any other questions that maybe we missed in the chat or that have come up? Okay, if you think of anything afterwards, our email addresses are in the slide deck. And so we'll just call it quits. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have learned some valuable information. For more information about PTA tax filings and finance, you can visit our website, 33rdpta.org, and California State PTA's website, capta.org. If you have any suggestions for topics that you want us to provide training on, email ptatraining@33rdpta.org. Alrighty, and thank you very much for attending.
Thank you, everybody.